I see. Minister, good morning and welcome to the meeting.
Morning, Chair, morning, members of the committee, morning, generals.
Yes, good morning, Deputy Minister. I'm just confirming the presence of the following members. Honorable Weber, you are here.
Morning, Chair. Yes, I am.
Honorable Phillips.
Morning,
Good
Chair.
morning. Honorable Bryant, good morning.
Morning, Chairperson.
Good morning, Honorable Mudise.
Good morning, Chairperson.
Honorable Singh, good morning.
Present, ma'am. Good morning.
Honorable Person, good morning to you.
Good morning, Chair. Good morning, colleagues. Good morning to the SAP that's present here.
The Deputy Minister as well. And the Minister, they are here.
Minister,
Yes.
my favorite person there in that executive.
Honorable Kancho, good morning.
Good morning, Chair. Morning, everyone.
Good morning, Honorable Mbata.
Morning, Chair. Morning, everyone.
And then I'm greeting the Deputy Minister and the Director General and all the senior managers in our midst.
Morning, Chairperson. Morning to all the honourable members. Morning to Deputy Minister Matale and members of the South African Police Service.
Then I'm greeting Deputy Minister Matale and the generals and all the members of the South African Police Service that are here. Good morning, DM.
Good morning, Chair, and good morning to the Minister, Chrissy, and the members of the committee. Thank you for inviting us to be part of the committee deliberations this morning. Thank you, and good morning once more to General Muthala, General Patekile, and the team.
Thank you so much, DM. Can we quickly fly the agenda so that we get the mover and seconder for the agenda? There we are. Can I get a mover and a seconder for the agenda, please, colleagues?
It's Kanjo, Chair. I move for the adoption of the agenda. Thank you.
Thank you,
Chair,
Honorable Kancho.
it's Honorable Mbata. I second.
Seconded. Then we are fine. The agenda is as adopted. We have a delegation that's coming from the department, as I've indicated. Let's start with the apologies. The minister is present. Deputy Minister Chochu has apologized. And then all the other colleagues, they are in as well. So we can then start with our meeting.
There is an apology of the Minister of Police who will not be able to join us because of commitments that we are having this morning that clashes with this engagement. Thank you.
And you are present.
Yes, I am.
Yes, that's why I acknowledge you, because that apology was tendered that you are the leader of the delegation. Okay, it's fine. It's noted as well. Yeah, welcome, DM, to our meeting. And then the issue. Yeah, colleagues will recall that we had a virtual meeting with the department on the 24th of May, 2022, when the department briefed us on the transformation of the forestry sector and the challenges facing the department's forestry branch. And then at that meeting, you'll recall that there was a presentation on the status and ownership of the plantations and the status of land claims, including the lease agreements. Then the committee was further briefed on the land invasions in forest areas and moves to establish Community Forest Association. At that meeting, colleagues, you will recall that we also heard about the challenges that the forestry branch or program of the department is facing, especially in terms of aging and the ailing workforce. That also included the issue around timber theft and land invasions. And then at that meeting, you colleagues, you asked the department about the land and the plantation forest invasion in Grabouw. You must also recall that we asked about the alternative land for the people and whether the illegal occupation of land was coordinated. And then, as you've already seen, and today's meeting is a follow-up to the meeting that we held in May. This means that the department is going to brief us on the progress regarding the investigation into the organized land invasions at the Knoflokskraal site in Grabouw plantation. Similarly, the South African Police Services is going to update us on the status of their investigations into the same matter. We are made to understand that the issue of land hunger and the landlessness in our country, but we are a nation governed by the rule of law. This is where the South African Police Service comes in to enforce and keep the law and order. Also, our previous engagement with the department, it indicated that the department, DFFE, is responsible for the direct management of about 24,000 hectares in the Western Cape. And then it talks about the lease agreement of the private commercial company that ended in 2019, and that the department plans to retain these areas, and that the forestry production in line with the commercial forestry master plan, which promotes growth and investment in the sector. And then the issue here, you talk about the Western Cape. Here's a bollard package, which is about 7,000 hectares, including Grabouw plantation. And then you note that the Grabouw plantation is currently invaded by almost 4,000 households occupying the land. And the Knoflokskraal plantation is also invaded with about 24 households occupying the land. These are the areas where forestry land is being changed for agricultural use. It was stated in the meeting that we had last time that the department will investigate if there were other community members interested in community forestry agreements beyond those currently occupying the land. Minister, we might like to hear about the progress on that front too. Having said that, let me then welcome all of you. Then we're looking forward to the engagement with you. Should think, Minister, you are the first one to deal with the issues, then you delegate who's gonna deal with the entire presentation. Post that will allow Deputy Minister to do the same. And then any one of the general whom the Deputy Minister will assign will then brief us. And then we'll take questions thereafter. Over to you, Minister Chrissy.
Thank you very much, Chair, and greetings once again to yourself and to all the honourable members in today's meeting. Chair, I am joined today in this meeting by the Director General, Ms. Knoflokskraal, the DDG of Forestry, Ms. Nodada, the DDG of Regulatory Compliance, Ms. Benderman, as well as Ms. Craigie and Mr. Ndo. Mr. Ndo is the director responsible for the Knoflokskraal area. I think you know Ms. Craigie, she works with our enforcement unit. Honourable members, you would know that this particular area falls under what we call the category B and C forests. And these are the forests that we would want to put out to lease. And where possible, we would want to enter into community forestry agreements with landless community members who are interested in participating in forestry. And recently, the Deputy Minister launched our first community forestry agreement. And I think that we are very keen to work on the category B and C forests in this manner. And part of what is involved in the community forestry agreement is also looking for a private forestry partner, somebody in the industry who would be in a position to replant the land and offer the community an offtake agreement once the trees have reached maturity. So that is the kind of model that we are looking for. And when we enter into community forestry agreements, we open up the situation. We invite those who believe that they have a historical link with the land. We're not asking for title deeds, but you would understand that people who could have historical link with the land could be forestry workers themselves. It could be agricultural workers. It could also be those who might have historical association with particular pieces of the land. In this instance, the Khoi and the San would associate with the Knoflokskraal area as being land that was historically taken from them by the colonizers. What you would also understand is that our department is not responsible for land restitution. We are also not responsible for local government, and we're not responsible for safety and security. And I'm raising all of this because this matter is a complicated matter, and there are lots of externalities when it comes to our ability to solve the situation there. So the invasion originally happened during the lockdown time, and everybody will remember that in terms of the lockdown regulations, you could not evict people. But what we did at that particular point in time is that we got an order from the court to prevent further invasion of the land, and we worked together with DPWI to place security on the land. The invasion continued throughout the lockdown period. At some stage, myself and the Deputy Minister had a meeting with the Minister of DPWI, and we had indicated to her that this was a forestry area, that we wanted to use it for forestry, and that we needed those who were occupying the land to leave. I would say that there was uneven appetite from the minister in this regard, but in the end we did agree that we would have to pursue legal processes and that we would work together on trying to contain the land invasion. Early this year, I had a meeting with representatives of the community that has invaded this land, and there were also members from the Khoi and the San Council present, and I indicated to them that we would be happy to enter into a community forestry agreement, and we wanted to know whether they had an interest in participating in forestry. It was a difficult meeting, and it was a difficult meeting because a whole range of issues were raised in this meeting relating to the land rights of the First Nation. And various UN charters were cited. And in that meeting, we did advise that in terms of the South African Constitution, there isn't recognition of this concept of the First Nation, and but what the South African Constitution does recognize is land rights of all South Africans. And it does also recognize that people have been deprived of their land. We also explained that the legal dispensation for restitution is post 1913. And subsequent to that meeting, the Department of Land and Rural Development has set up a committee to look into the land rights of the Khoi and the San communities, and is working on that matter with the Khoi and the San Council. And so what honorable members need to understand is that we can only be involved in this matter as the Department of DFFE, as far as those who are on the land would be interested in engaging in forestry. On the same day that we put this proposal to the community, we also had a meeting with the TWK municipality, the mayor, the speaker, and the chief whip. In that meeting, we said that if we're going to engage in this community forestry agreement, we would want the blessing of the municipality, but we would also want the municipality to make alternative land available for those who are living on this land at the moment and who do not want to engage in forestry activities. That was the last time that we were able to engage either with the community or with the municipality. And Mr. Ndo and the DDG have made numerous attempts to set up follow-up meetings so that we can follow up on the discussions in that meeting. And the conclusion one has reached is that there's no appetite from this community for a community forestry agreement. And there is also no appetite from the municipality for this agreement, and no appetite to provide alternative land. And so the situation that we find ourselves in is because it is no longer possible to conduct forestry operations on this land. There are 4,000 people living on this land. Given this situation, we have no alternative but to hand this land back to the owner of the land, which is the Department of Public Works and Infrastructure. So that is the introduction I would want to give Honorable Chairperson, and I'm going to hand over to Ms. Nodada and the team to make the formal presentation.
Good morning, Honorable Chairperson. Good morning, Minister, Deputy Minister, and the honorable members. If we can go to the slide with the background, I think it would be slide number 3. Thank you very much. I think, as outlined already by the Minister, we are responsible for direct management of about 24,000 hectares of land in the Western Cape, which was previously managed by a private company. And when the lease of that company ended, the intention of the department has always been to bring back the production of that land back into forestry, in line with the Commercial Forestry Master Plan, which promotes growth and investment, but also to make sure that there is job creation around the forestry sector as it promotes a rural economy. As indicated by the Minister, the land was invaded in late 2020, and we had then consulted with the Department of Public Works and Infrastructure, who is the owner department of that particular land, to make sure that we try and curb the invasions. And we subsequently were able to get a containment order, which then allowed us to try and protect that particular land at that time. Next slide, please. This slide shows the areas that have been invaded. Initially, it was the 3 properties where the invasions took place. And that's where the containment order was issued. And then on the next slide. And then following these invasions, and trying to make sure that we provide security to make sure that there isn't additional land that is invaded, and collaborating with the DPWI, they provided the security on site, and then we agreed that we would then share the cost to protect that particular land. Following those discussions and the recognition that there is additional land that was being invaded, even though there was the containment order, the DGs met in March of this current year to see how do we then best manage this land going forward to make sure that we deal with the invasions. This was then followed by a number of meetings between ourselves as officials to implement the decisions. And there was then an implementation of one of those decisions to make sure that the current order is extended to include the properties that were not initially included in the first containment order, to try and make sure that those properties are also protected. And then there was also a need to deploy tactical security to try and strengthen the current security that was there at the time. And then the Department of Forestry, Fisheries and the Environment then took the responsibility of making sure that it would fund the protection of that area. Next slide. As indicated, I think on slide 3, the containment order was received for the 2 property, the property that was the 3 properties that were in Grabouw. And there was another property in the Knysna area where the order was also received, where eviction was what needed to take place. But then with regards to the Grabouw area specifically, the sheriff was then employed to execute the orders. And this was done on a number of occasions to try and limit further invasion. And as indicated, there's over 4,000 people that are already in the area. And there is also recognition that these numbers still rise on a day-to-day basis. And therefore, there is a need to get a permanent response or a permanent solution to try and deal with the invasions. So through the collaboration, the DFFE has requested the Department of Public Works and Infrastructure as the landowner to initiate the eviction processes so that we can have a permanent solution, and also to try and curb the spillover of the invasions in the other properties. That would be property F334, 330, the 336 and the 335. 335 was partially covered, so we needed to cover the extent of it to make sure that there won't be additional evictions. And the DPWI legal team is still working on the internal processes to make sure that that eviction process does take place. Whilst all of this is happening, we are also receiving pressure from the Western Cape government in terms of pressurizing the 2 departments to deal with these invasions, mainly because as much as the forestry department, we are worried about the forestry production in the area, there's also agricultural land that if these invasions are not kept, that those agricultural lands would be impacted. Next slide, please. So through this process, we've also, okay, the presentation has disappeared on my side, Chair. I don't know if the members can still see.
It's not being on the screen here.
Sorry, Chair, it's load shedding. I'm just reconnecting now.
Oh, sorry.
Tileka? Oh, sorted. It's coming.
Apologies about that, Honorable Chair and members. We have then, through utilizing our environmental legislation and the forestry legislation, opened cases within the Grabouw police station. And these range from timber theft, trespassing, and land invasion itself. And most of these cases are still under investigation. There has been some warrant of arrest that have been issued, but some have been remanded for court appearances. So on the next slide, what we've tried to do additionally, that would be slide number 8, is to write to the investigating officer as a department. Okay, I think we're struggling. Okay, thank you. To the investigating officer, where as a department, looking at the kind of work that we do as a department and the kind of support that we think we can be able to provide to try and make sure that there is progress on the cases. We have offered that we could, through the support of the wildlife crime investigations, where we have some analysts that have been appointed, do some analytical profiling, and also do some support in terms of expertise, in terms of this analysis of cell phone data, financial surveillance, by analyzing the data that has been received through the Financial Intelligence Center. Also, if there is any outstanding evidence that it could be required that the departmental officials could have to assist in the 6 cases that have been opened, we have indicated that we are open to provide that assistance. And additionally to that, we have experts within the department, within Forestry, who understand the legislation, who could assist in providing a testimony, and also some specialists who can also provide testimony with regards to the environmental impact related issues that could be then used in resolving these cases. Then on the next slide, we have then recognized that there's a reasonable amount of resources that we have deployed between the 2 departments to try and deal with the invasions. And we've also noted that the court processes are lengthy and would also require that as a department we provide alternative land once the eviction order is finally granted. And also the fact that the invasions keep increasing on a daily basis, it has an ability to impact on us as a department to try and implement the commercial forestry master plan, where we would want as much as possible to have the land brought back into forestry production, and we can be able to bring in a private sector to support us for that land to be brought back into production. So in recognition of all of this above, the department has no option and has considered that the option could be to release the land back to the owner department, which is the Department of Public Works and Infrastructure, through Section 53 of our National Forest Act, which does provide for the minister to release land that is no longer suitable for forestry back to the owner department. And in this case, we will then commence to have these engagements with the DPWI to make sure that that release of land is fast-tracked, and therefore make sure that going forward, then the DPWI would be responsible for the management of that land. I think, Chairperson, that will be all from our side. Thank you.
Thank you so much, DDG Nodada. Can I hand over to Deputy Minister Matale to lead the SAPS presentation? Dear Matale, to you.
Thanks very much, Chair. Good morning to you. Good morning to honorable members of the committee. good morning, Minister Cressy and your delegation. As I indicated that I'm joined by Lieutenant General Muthala and Lieutenant General Patekile, who is heading the province. I will, through you, request that they present the responses of SAPS on the matters that are under discussion. General Muthala, if you can lead with the presentation, please. Through you, Chair.
Thank you, Deputy Minister.
Good morning, Honorable Chairperson and Honorable members, Honorable Minister Cressy and Honorable DM, protocol observed. Let me firstly, Honorable Chairperson and members, also tender the apology for the National Commissioner, who is actually engaged in operational commitments. But with me, I'm Lieutenant General Mosala, the Divisional Commissioner for Visible Policing and Operations. I'm with Lieutenant General Patekile, the Provincial Commissioner for Western Cape, together with Brigadier Malashela, who's the Executive Secretariat in the Office of the National Commissioner, and the staff. Through you, Honorable Chairperson, the presentation will be presented by Lieutenant General Patekile, the Provincial Commissioner of Western Cape. General Patekile.
Good morning to you, Chair, Honorable Chair, the Honorable Minister, the Deputy Ministers, Honorable members. The presentation, as it's can I ask that we go to the next page. That is what we're going to be talking about on the cases and the type of crimes that were reported and interventions that we've done and challenges that we have. Next slide, please. That's a background that where we got the invite that today we should be giving a feedback. But we know of the first person that who erected in structure in the Knoflokskraal farm was Richard Isaac from Canada, who claims that his mother's maiden surname was Haas, and the surname Haas is unique in the Khoisan clan. He recruited people from the Cape Flats to erect illegal structures in the Knoflokskraal. This was reported to the Department of Forestry by the station commander of Grabouw. SAPS dealt with the alleged cases of crime that happened within that farm and also assisted the sheriff of the court, and security is appointed with the demolition of the half-erected structures then and unoccupied dwellings. But no eviction could take place due to the High Court order that was issued. Next slide, please. These are the interventions, Chair, that we are doing there: visible policing on a daily deployment, public order policing members in the area, integrated operations between the provincial traffic flying squad and law enforcement officers, and the multidisciplinary stakeholders meetings involving the SAPS, Department of Forestry, and Department of Public Works has happened several occasions. Now, integrated public engagement with the community leaders and Human Rights Commissioner, which also was part of the engagement. Reverend Chris Nissan was part of those engagements. It's numerous occasions. Then they have weekly meetings at provincial on the spontaneous and planned service delivery protests, including land invasion. All other departments in the province are participating. We have had 15 operations where the SAPS assisted the sheriff of the court in that land. Next slide. Chair, these are the cases that were in the previous presentation. And mostly the first one was public violence, which was then withdrawn by the court, the public prosecutor to say no prospect of sufficient prosecution. And then these are the 4 cases of trespassing that we have. They are all pending with no arrest. You can go to the next slide. It will be then the details of each one. This is the first one that was withdrawn. Next one. all the other cases, the 4 cases that we have, they are pending. We have no arrests yet, under investigation, and the cases are at court for decisions. And the proof of ownership of the land, we have not had that. And apart from that, the public prosecutors, they are waiting for the final court order because of the court order that was there, and also the counter claims that we're informed of. Those cases are still at court for decisions. We're waiting for the decision from the NPA if we could continue, but they cited the fact that the ownership of the land is a problem, and the 2 counter court orders that are apparently there, they are waiting for the outcome of that so that we can start doing the arrest if there is that possibility. Chair, that's all. That's the same up to the last slide, please. Now, the challenge that we have as the complexity of the issue in that area is the reluctance of potential witnesses to give statements, and also the identification of legal owners. We're informed that part of some portions of the land are owned by different people, which it makes it so complicated that we need to get all the information about who owns the land, and then so that the NPN and then can continue advise what we should be doing further. But Chair, all the cases are at court for decisions. Thank you, Chair. Honorable Chair, I shall hand over to you.
Thank you, Chair. That is the presentation that we have with regard to where we are with the cases. Thank you. I think there might be a problem of load shedding because we can't seem to get the chair to respond.
I see so, Deputy Minister, sir.
Tialaka, is the chair available?
Yes, Mr. Bryant, she's in the platform.
Maybe she's muted. If you can ask her to unmute because...
yeah, I was battling to unmute. I'm sorry about that, dear. Okay. Sorry about that. Honorable Phillips, followed by Honorable Bryant in that order. Colleagues, and then Paulson will follow.
Good morning, and thank you very much for the presentation. I have a number of questions and also some comments. On slide 3 from the department, I'd like to know why the previous lease was allowed to lapse before the Cat B and C forestry partners could be found and agreements entered into. Then there were a number of court orders and security was provided. How was the invasion allowed to continue? The DPW&I legal team, they're waiting on internal approval for the eviction process. Who's going to give this approval and how much longer is it going to take? And then we heard from Minister Creasy that there was an uneven appetite from Minister Delors. Surely, as a sworn member of the legislature, she needs to uphold the law, and we shouldn't have an uneven appetite to enforce the law. And then handing the land back to the very department that doesn't seem to have an even appetite for enforcing the law of the country seems to be a very dangerous precedent to set. And it concerns me greatly that this will set a precedent where we're just going to end up handing back all the land and the law is not going to be enforced. We see that there are 6 cases that were registered, but we have more than 4,000 invaders. Those numbers don't add up. And then I'd like to know from SAPS why they have not taken up the offer of the profiling, the cell phone data, the financial analysis, etc. The interventions mentioned by SAPS, they seem to be totally fruitless and wasteful because they haven't prevented the 4,000 people from invading the land, and they haven't removed the 4,000 people. So I'd like to know exactly what the 15 operations that they've had have actually achieved. As for proof of land ownership, it's taken 3 years. That's available on Windeeds that anybody can go and look up in a matter of hours. So I'm very concerned that it takes SAPS more than 3 years to investigate something that most journalists would be able to do in less than a day. That's my questions. Thank you, and my comments. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you so much, Honorable Phillips. Honorable Bryant, you're going to be followed by Honorable Weber, then it will be Paulson, then it will be Lise, in that order.
Thank you very much, Chairperson. Chairperson, from the outset, I'd just like to say that the Minister Creasy is in an unenviable situation here, and I think the department has shown that they have done a considerable amount of work from their side to try and address this situation, which is obviously highly complex and highly complicated. And at the end of the day, effectively attempting to protect the assets that are under their control in the interest of health and safety, agricultural interest that surround those properties, but I think primarily in terms of the potential impact on economic opportunities in that area and the jobs that are now potentially not going to materialize for local people due to this ongoing set of challenges on this land. And to hear that the land is now going to have to be potentially handed back to DPW, not used for forestry activities, and all of the jobs that are now effectively not going to materialize, is a very, very sad thing to hear, especially in our dire economic climate at present, with so many jobs at risk and so many people struggling to put food on the table as it is. Chairperson, I just want to ask, in terms of that, firstly, to the representatives from DFFE, how many jobs, if they can give an estimate, have effectively been put at risk by this, and what sort of an impact that's going to have on the implementation of the Forestry Master Plan going forward. And then in terms of SAPS, I just want to echo Honourable Phillips in terms of that question as to why the investigation support that was offered was not responded to in terms of that opportunities for further forensic investigation and assistance. There is a considerable amount of information available online if one simply does a Google search. I can note an article from the 30th of October 2021 on News 24, where individuals are cited as admitting to have been involved in encouraging people to illegally occupy that land. Cell phone clips available online of people encouraging individuals to occupy that land. And I can quote directly from one of SAP's own PowerPoint presentations that's available online, titled Illegal Land Evictions, Invasions, Conflict Resolutions and Labor Rights. And in terms of that, SAPs themselves state in their own presentation that if information exists under oath that a person or persons are conspiring to invade land, such person or persons may be arrested in terms of Section 18(2)(a) of the Riotous Assemblies Act 1956. Why has SAPS not acted in terms of this information, which is readily available, and the offers of assistance that have been given from the DFFE? Because we're sitting with a situation now where so many of these people who have been encouraged to take occupation of that land are now in a very, very difficult predicament. And the job opportunities that may have been available to surrounding communities have now been severely put at risk. We also had that terrible fire that took place, and the damage that was done as a result of that. Surely SAPS should be assisting in holding those responsible for encouraging this to take place to account. Thanks, Chairperson.
Thank you so much, Honorable Bright. Honorable Weber, over to you.
Good morning, Chair. Colleagues, I just want to say that it is incredibly sad that with laws in our country that we still sit in a situation like this that we should not be sitting in. I also want to thank Minister Creasy for everything they have done to try and resolve this issue. But I would like to know two things. The one is how much money has this whole thing cost? Obviously, there must have been money spent, and on what, and it is money that's not been budgeted for. And did they spend some money on protection and security in order to protect their own land? And then in one of the presentations, we speak about trees that was cut down. Was that actually part of the forestry that was already there, or haven't we started with that yet? And then I would really ask the Deputy Minister if they can give, as my colleague Honourable Philip said, they had 15 projects that they worked on during this thing. How much money was spent on all of this, and yet there was no result to it? So I would like to have that breakdown as well. Thank you very much.
David, I must choose one. You are giving me two names. On which one is better?
Chairperson, what's happening there?
Okay, proceed, Honorable Paulson.
Thank you very much, Chairperson. Thank you very much, Minister, for the presentation and SAPS. Firstly, Chairperson, I would like to say that those people of Knoflokskraal are revolutionary and are implementing the EFF's cardinal pillar number 1 of land expropriation without compensation, and I take my hat off to them. This is the Western Cape, and our people are forced to be backyard dwellers. They are being failed by both the national and especially the provincial government. And I want to say to all people across South Africa, and especially here in the colonized Western Cape, who are homeless and landless, to find land anywhere that they like and to occupy that land. And to SAPS, SAPS must just keep law and order and keep out those who want to evict our people and deny them their birthright of a place to stay, and ensure that our people are allowed to establish their lives wherever they wish. Now, to the presentation of the department. Now that we've just put aside all those monarchists and their ideas of colonization and denying people an opportunity, the department presented the community an opportunity to participate in community forestry. The community refused. Now, Knoflokskraal is very far from many of the essential services that people may use. You know, it's just there on that bend as you come over the pass. A very nice location, I must say. They've done well finding prime land. It's very far from essential services and or any economic opportunity. But here's an opportunity for development, which I think it's perfect, and the community has been given an option. So I want to know, what is the community's reasons for turning down this offer? And over and above giving them the opportunity, what sort of support would go along with that? And are there any other further engagements with the community of Knoflokskraal? I mean, this is the department with the skills that are going to be required, or in terms of the support that the wonderful community, the revolutionary community of Knoflokskraal will need in order to develop that land and to create livelihoods for themselves. And also, what is the estimated value of the potential forestry activity in Knoflokskraal? 4,000 people, let's say 100 to 200 families that can participate in meaningful economic activity would be great. I think here's a perfect case study for how a new South Africa can allow people to reclaim their dignity. And this department can be at the forefront of that development. And certainly, if this department pursues this path, the EFF would be quite willing to assist where it can, but to deny our people an opportunity and to evict our people from this land should never ever even cross our minds. That is inhumane and immoral. Thank you very much, Chairperson.
Thank you so much, Honorable Paulson. Honorable Mdisa will be followed by Honorable Gancho.
Chairperson, good morning. Thank you very much. Someone spoke about load shedding, and I suspect that is Deputy Minister Matale. I suspect his intelligence has briefed them that I am load shed. If you allow me, let me proceed without the video. I'm trying to log it on, Chair. I'm failing successfully. But I'm sure I'll get it all right as we proceed. Chair, I think a number of colleagues have raised critical issues pertaining to the discrepancies that we're picking up from the presentation of the South African police services. Plus minus 4,000 invaders, 5 cases registered, one already withdrawn, 4 waiting for the NPA to decide whether they are proceeding, whether the case is tangible or not. I just find all of that very contradictory. So I'd rather stick to what I think we do best, the environmental degradation and its devastating impact by the invaders there. Chair, one, the current disputes in the case of Grabouw, how will this impact? Will it impact positively or negatively on the implementation of the forestry master plan? The forestry master plan and the expected job creation out of the community forestry partnerships there. 2, I think it is the minister, Honorable Chrissy. She raised the issue that some of the occupants of the land claim that they are the first nation, and they allege that they have lodged a land restitution claim, even though the law allows for restitution claim dating back to 1913 until the cut-off date of 1998. And this is not taking into account the fact that the land claims were again reopened in 2014. Now, I need to get an understanding in terms of the engagements that have been taking place there. Did the minister find the community appreciative, or are they receptive to the rule of law? Do they appreciate that at least there is a rule of law, because that is the kind of a country we are. 3, what is the impact on this land invasion on the environment and the forestry ecosystem? What will it take to rehabilitate this land, and what are the concerns, if there are any, from the adjacent forestry or agricultural holdings? Have the conversation been extended to that level? What is the response of the agricultural or conservation holdings in the adjacent areas? And has the department considered maybe doing a feasibility study on the land? And what will that economic impact if the land is eventually returned to DPW and I? What will be the economic impact? But after all has been said and done, and after applying all the tools of analysis, what is the recommendation? Or what is it that is expected of us as a portfolio committee to the department? What needs to be done? Lastly, Honorable Chair, on the presentation of SAPS, which I don't think has said really much, it could very well be because it is in their nature as people of law not to divulge everything. But quite frankly, the presentation isn't saying much. But has SAPS received any tangible information on the claims that the land is owned by different owners, or is it the task of the National Prosecuting Authority, which is also awaiting the process? Thank you very much, Honorable Chairperson. I will send you a photo on private WhatsApp.
That you are in a meeting. Thank you, Honorable Mdisa. Honorable Ganjo.
Thank you, Chairperson, and good morning again to colleagues. Chair, let me appreciate the 2 presentations that were made by the Department of the FFE and also by the police. Chair, I only have 2 points to raise. First, I just want to check, seeing that the provincial government is not assisting on the aspect of checking another alternative land for these people. I just want to check if it's possible to involve Department of Agriculture, Rural Development, and Land Reform, so that we can check if there's no other land that belongs to the states that will be available, so that we can persuade and engage these people to move to another alternative land. And last one, Chair, that I wanted to raise or to propose is for us to call a joint portfolio committee meeting between the Department of Public Works and Infrastructure and the FFE. We also get the Minister of Public Works to also come and give us her own understanding or her own inputs on this matter. That's what I wanted to share. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I also want to join the colleagues that acknowledge the good work that the department has been doing thus far in trying to resolve these matters. Then we want to appreciate the efforts that the ministry have been trying to do together with the department. Then the minister said, you were trying to accommodate the community by entering into community forestry agreements, which was going to be good in terms of job creation, as some of the colleagues have said, especially given the issue that there's a lot of poverty, the inequality and unemployment. Then the issue that came was that they lacked the appetite for forestry activities. Maybe hence they see the need to just occupy the land and do other things, which was very good, especially if indeed it was going to be possible to accommodate all those 4,000 people through the arrangement. But then the issue that comes there are also departmental staff who have been tending the plantation forestry that is invaded. And then now that, did you know that you've indicated that you want to return the land back to the Department of Public Works? Then what will become the role of these employees when these things are done? And then the other issue, we have been inundated with this issue of the district development model that was meant to then bring all spheres of government together in resolving issues or to expedite the issue of service delivery to the people. Then when you listen to these issues, wherein then you hear that the local government and the provincial government and then the others are not coming to the party, especially the local government. Then once you find such a situation, not understanding what will be the plausible reason for the reluctance of local government to cooperate with the department, maybe that's the reason why these communities then occupy the land, because if then organs of state are not working together, that's what normally happens. Then looking at the SAPS presentation, Lieutenant General Patekile, you indicate that there's a court order from Public Works, which clearly indicates that no one is allowed to construct structures at the Knoflokskraal, except the ones that were already there in November 2020 and January 2021. Could you please clarify why this exception, if these informal structures were part of the land invasion? And then what is the precise date of the land invasion in Grabouw? And the issue that one also want to understand, did the communities currently occupying the plantation forest land ever laid a claim to the area that they are currently occupying? And then as we speak now, how many people are there presently? Those are the issues that one wanted to raise. Honorable President, I suspect this is an old end that is up. Am I wrong? Yeah. So those were the issues on my side. We can hand over to DFFE, then SAPS will then respond later.
Thank you very much, Chairperson. Let me start by agreeing with Honourable Ganshall that perhaps it would be helpful for the committee to receive a briefing from DPWI themselves. I don't really want to answer on their behalf, and I think Honourable Phillips wanted various pieces of information. Let me just clarify when I say that there was less appetite at the time when myself and Deputy Minister met Minister de Lille. I think Minister de Lille was of the opinion at that time, and this was last year, that the invasion had gone too far to be reversed. and we were of the opinion that it could still be reversed, and I suppose that history has proved her to be correct. Let me also, you know, it might be a little bit difficult for us to answer the question of how many jobs could have been created, but let me explain why one was keen to keep this land under forestry. I think that there is an appetite globally for forestry fiber. And I think one of the things that I have learned is that whereas in the past one was using trees for the production of paper, this is not really the primary purpose for forestry products at this stage, and that forestry fiber is primarily now used in the manufacture of garments, and there is international appetite for this product. And in interactions that we've had with the forestry sector, there has been a concern that these plantations should be returned to productive use because there is market opportunity and market appetite for forestry fiber. And obviously, as many members of the committee have pointed out, we are in a situation where we have high levels of unemployment in our society. And obviously what that means is that where we can use land for productive economic purposes rather than for residential purposes, we would want to try to do that. Now, Honorable Paulson, I think that what is important to recognize is that if you are engaged in forestry, you can't have 200 families settled on the land where you want to grow trees. Forestry is what we call an extensive activity. It requires a lot of land, and it's not compatible with the settlement of 200 families. So at the moment, what has happened is that people have cut down all the trees, they've burnt the area, and they have divided the land into little plots. Now, you can't grow trees under those circumstances. You would have seen forestry plantations. And what normally happens is that those who would be either working on those plantations, or in the case of the model that we want to establish being owner growers, they would be settled in a small village. But I think that to have 200 families needing to have a hectare plot each for their houses is not going to be compatible with forestry land use. Now, I don't want to make a value judgment about whether this land should be used for residential purposes, whether it should be used for agricultural purposes, or whether it should be used for forestry purposes. All I can explain to you is that I'm not the owner of this land. We would want it to be used for forestry. It's no longer possible, given the land occupation, for it to be used for forestry. And under those circumstances, I can only return it to the owner, who would then be in a position to decide the land use. It's not I am not empowered to decide the land use. I'm only empowered to use it for forestry purposes. So if a decision needs to be taken that this land is for residential purposes, which is what the occupiers seem to wish, then obviously that's not a decision I can take, but I'm sure the owner of the land would understand what the land use change process is. When we had the original discussion, we had said to Minister de Lille that in our view, this particular piece of land is very far from services. And I think that we all understand that municipalities are under financial strain, and that if you have to take services up a mountainside, it's much more expensive than if you're providing services in a settlement. And obviously, if you are looking at who can provide alternative land, DPWI, of course, can provide alternative land because they are the landowner. Honorable Gancho, one could not enter into a situation where you're changing agricultural land into residential land. That requires a whole land use change, because obviously, just as we've tried to protect land for forestry, the Department of Agriculture would be trying to protect land for agricultural purposes. Because, as I say, all of us are concerned that we need, where land is designated at the moment for economic purposes, it should be, as far as possible, used for economic purposes. I think that the only other issue that I would want to answer would be the chair's question about the district delivery model. This particular piece of land falls into the Overberg district municipality. Minister de Lille is the district champion. So I think this would be an interesting question that you could also put to her, should you follow Honorable Gancho's suggestion. Let me pause there and let me hand over to the team who will be able to give you some more details on some of the questions that have been raised.
Thank you, Minister.
Phumeza or Cyril, maybe?
Thank you very much, Honorable Chair and Honorable Members, and thank you, Minister. I think in addition to what the Minister has responded to, in terms of Honorable Philip's question on the lapsing of the lease, this was a lease that was entered into for a 20-year period where there was land that was taken out of forestry because of environmental and water-related issues. And it was due to end in 2019. And part of it ending in 2019 was due to the fact that most of the areas were burnt down during the 2017 and 2018 fires that happened in the Southern Cape. So the lease itself was due to end at that time, but unfortunately, the timing between the end of the lease and us taking over as a department was impacted by the lockdown period, which then meant that there couldn't be any work that could be done in that particular area at the time. So then in line with the question raised by Honorable Bryant on the number of jobs, I think the Minister is correct. We may not be able to do the quick calculations now, but in overall, in terms of the master plan, the plan indicates that if we were to bring 151,000 hectares back into production in South Africa as a whole, then we would be able to create about 100,000 jobs, both in the primary and the processing side of the value chain. And in terms of linking this, the issue of the master plan to Honorable Mudisa's question on the impact of the master plan, the impact of the invasions to the master plan, yes, it will have an impact, because what it then means is that that Boland package that had been identified to be an economically viable package, if it is intact on its own, it will then mean that it will now not be as viable as it would have been. It would mean that it will not be as attractive as it would have been to the private sector. And hence, it means that then the jobs or the investment that the industry would have wanted to make in that package as a whole would then be affected. So that would be the impact in terms of the in terms of the master plan. In terms of the question,
sorry, Chair, through you. Just can you check your figures on the hectares we're bringing back into production? I think 150,000 hectares is very little to create 100,000 jobs. I think there's a mistake there.
Oh, okay. The 151,000 would be the ones that are not in production right now and linked to the ones that are already in production. Apologies, Minister, for not explaining it in detail. So we would want to bring the 151,000 that is not productive and link it to the 1.2 million that is already in production right now, so that there is additional jobs that are created. And then linked to that, that will also lead to the secondary processing within the master plan. Okay. Then in terms of Honorable Weber's question, and I think there were two members who asked about costs. We might not have the correct or the total costs that have been spent thus far on the whole operation in terms of trying to get the area protected and trying to get the sheriff to be involved in terms of the demolitions. Maybe we can just do a quick calculation between ourselves and DPW to provide those figures. And then I think lastly, the question that was raised by the Honorable Chair in terms of now that the land will be returned back to the DPWI, what will the staff in the Western Cape be responsible for? When we look at the future plans of the department, where we are saying that we will not be responsible for direct management of plantations, but we will be responsible for issues related to enforcement of our legislation, responsible for issues related to post-settlement support, and issues related to greening. So the staff there will be responsible for that, as we had planned when we were going to lease out that land, because even if we lease out the land, we will then still need to manage and make sure that the lessor, the person who's leased the land is able to adhere to the undertakings that they have signed for and make sure that those plantations are functional. So the colleagues in the Western Cape would still have some work to do looking at the future functions of the branch as part of the new structure that has been approved. I think, Minister, I have covered most of the issues. I'm not sure if there's anything that I've left out. Thank you.
Yes. Can we then hand over to Deputy Minister and SAPS?
Thanks, Chair. I'll ask through you, General Patekile, to in the responses. General Patekile.
Thank you, Deputy Minister. Thank you, Honorable Chair and Minister, honorable members. The first question, when did it start? There are two cases for 2020. Those two cases, one is at court here, and then the other one is a warrant of arrest. One was a housebreaking case, which is called burglary, and the other one was...
Advocate General Patekile, is it possible to put on your video or your analog shading?
Certainly, ma'am.
There we are. Now I see. Who saw there?
Thank you, ma'am. The 2020 cases was an arrest on burglary resident, and the other one is theft, where then there's a warrant of arrest of the person. Now, second question, what we had with Mr. Pura, the first question, why did we take up the offer from the Department of Forestry? We have not refused the offer, but the cases are at court for decisions. When we work with these cases, they are procedural guided investigation that we follow, because by its very nature, these cases of trespasses, they have a tendency of being civil, and there's always a conflict of claims being between the two. That is why we had this challenge of the ownership of the land that was an issue, that people should deposit the statements to say, I own this land. Now, second thing, why so few cases that we've opened? You will understand that first case that talks about 100 to 200 people demarcated the land. So in other, that's one incident that gets reported. We are not the owners of the land. We get the report, and then we open case on those incidents. If it's a group that has been there, then we open that case as a trespass case on one case. Or maybe there could be 100 people, there could be 1,000 people on one case that could be charged. That is why it is also as complicated as we mentioned in the first place at Madam Chair. Right as we now speaking, we have had 15 operations where we assisted the sheriff. We are not responsible for evicting people. We assist the sheriff when the sheriff goes there to do the evictions. But as we already initiated to say they were prevented from by other court orders saying, but during the COVID, they could not do any other evictions. But subsequent to that, either the Department of Public Works and Infrastructure or Fisheries, they put in securities to guard the land. And after that, the land was guarded. We have not had any reports that there are other people that have occupied the land illegally. I think those were the two counsels that we were to give Honorable Chair, and the second be reminded of the third one.
In fact, I think there was a question that asked us how much money have we spent on the 15 programs or operations. I'm not sure whether you are able to assist with that one, General Patiki.
Thank you, DM and Honorable Chair. I will not be able to answer that. We can also provide that in writing to the Honorable Chair, because that needs to calculate few rands and cents, which I wouldn't have that figure right now. So thank you, Honorable Chair.
Okay, thank you, Lieutenant General Patekile, for the responses. Do I have hands for follow-up questions? I see one already. Honorable Bryant, then followed by Phillips.
Thank you, Chairperson. Chairperson, sorry, the General Patekile did ask if any reminders. The one question that I did ask quite specifically was in terms of any arrests or charges laid against individuals for instigating the illegal occupation, and if any investigations have been carried out or any arrests made in terms of those responsible for instigating the illegal invasions.
Okay, you might have captured that one. Honorable Phillips, followed by Paulson.
Thank you so much, Chair. Chair, my question was not answered about the lease being reallocated. I understand that it was going to expire, but it does appear that in so many instances in the department, that the department first waits for the lease or the contract or whatever it is to expire before they take any action. This is totally unacceptable. The action should actually be taken so that there's a seamless transaction from one leaseholder or one function to another. So that's my one comment. And then I did have another comment about the ownership. Surely the onus is on the police to investigate who the actual owner is, rather than to wait for somebody to put up their hand. The fact that there was a court order stopping people from invading the land, surely that means that the police should be investigating and not waiting for somebody to come forward. Thank you so much.
Thank you, colleague. Honorable Paulson, over to you.
Thank you very much, Chair. You know, it's I don't know why people are worried about ownership of land. Those people, you know, especially if you're a, you know, you're a non-African. I mean, these people were born here. They are the owners of the land, and this is a project that will be sweeping throughout Cape Town, the Western Cape, and South Africa, where the rightful owners of the land will be taking over the land, and the general present here must just ensure that no non-Africans are given the right to go and evict people from what belongs to them. It's their land. And I would like to know from the general what he's doing to make sure that there's a satellite police station, to make sure that those 4,000 people are given protection and given the presence of law so that they may go on with their lives. And also, the minister said that, you know, I don't know exactly how much hectares of land is in question here, but Knoflokskraal is big. You know, there's an opportunity for a hybrid system here, yes. We can have an area allocated for building accommodation for those 200 families, and the rest used for economic activity like forestry. I don't think that we should just give up on this possibility just yet. So I want to know what is being done to ensure that services are given to these people at Knoflokskraal, and that responsibility, of course, where does it lie? I must say that we should laud the efforts of people of Knoflokskraal who were living in backyards across the Cape Flats, because, you know, the poorest service delivery for housing is in Cape Town. So these people have taken it upon themselves to make sure that they no longer rely on an ineffective government here in Cape Town in the Western Cape, and take care of themselves, and very soon they will have a government that supports their efforts. So I want to know, number one, about what possibilities there are for a hybrid system.
It's only him.
Sorry?
We can hear him, Chair.
Let's.
So what opportunities there are for a hybrid process where you have a small area allocated for residences and the rest being used for economic activity like forestry, or if not agriculture, if that's the possibility. And also from the general, what plans are afoot to ensure that there's a satellite police station to keep those people safe, and that there's a sense of law and order in Knoflokskraal. Thank you very much, Chair.
Yes. Can the colleagues respond?
Let me take first bite, Chairperson. Honourable Phillips, I think it's also important when we are looking at the whole history of the forestry branch, to understand that this is a branch that was transferred to us, I think with effect from the 1st of April 2020. This branch originally resided in another department. And I think part of the reason that it was transferred to us is that the forestry sector required attention. And it was through this transfer that we began to work on the forestry master plan, and we began to work on a process with regard to the category B and C forests, which in our view had been under utilized for a period of time from when the existing leases had expired. So I think that it's important that you take into account the transition, and we do agree with you that it's very important that as quickly as possible we sort out the governance arrangements with regard to these forests, because I think that it's this kind of hiatus that can lead to the difficulties that we're facing. Honorable Paulson, let me talk politics. I think you and I are from a school that says the history of the world to date is the history of the class struggle. I suppose one of the issues that one has to look into when one has to understand whether there is or there isn't an appetite for forestry is the nature of the invaders. And what is interesting about these invaders is that they drive SUVs, and they are able to bring all kinds of facilities onto the land that they are occupying. I'm from Gauteng, so I do understand the issue of landlessness and poverty. And I've had a lot of experience of the lack of either movable or immovable assets that landless communities normally confront. It's not my experience in this situation. So perhaps there's no appetite to engage in forestry because the primary source of revenue is already secured. So I suppose that you know, my political training taught me that you must always research the background before you try to think about solutions. And that's why I met with these communities and I tried to understand their background. And I didn't find an appetite I didn't find that the primary interest in that meeting was in economic activity. So I suppose that, you know, offline we can discuss what the class structure is of that particular situation. But as I say, we really wanted a situation where we were able to continue with forestry. It's really not possible, and we will have to continue to apply our forestry master plan in other areas where there are poor landless communities, including our own workers, whom we are prepared to incorporate if there is appetite as owner growers. Thank you very much.
Saps, was there anything for you?
General Particular, is there a comment you'll want to make on the issues that was commented to, just as a reminder of the previous question which was not answered?
Thank you, DM. Thank you, Chair. Thank you, the Minister. I would comment as follows. With the first one of the investigation of the instigators, the main charges that are opened, trespassers. And then additional charges would follow once the decision by the NPA decides what additional charges should be put into that one. So it's possible that those charges will be added in that when we look at who the main instigators are, because there will always be that. The second one, the ownership of the land, precisely why we are unable to, the NPA is unable to make a decision, is that somebody who owns the land must deposit the statement to that effect. Because the court order that is based on that, it's now we need a statement that talks to the criminal element that we should be working, not taking the copy from the civil matter to the other one. Now, thirdly, Chair, I don't think that there would be, if the land is in question, I don't know how we're going to be able to put in a satellite station if the land is in question is in dispute. But what we're currently doing now, we got a sector vehicle that is in that space. And as we looked at our deployment, at daily deployment, we're deploying a van in that on a daily basis in that area. Thank you, Chair.
Okay. Thank you so much, Lieutenant General Particular, for the response. And I don't see any other hand. That brings us to the end of our meeting. And then we'll be closing, taking note on the proposal that Honorable Gancho has proposed, that we need a joint meeting soon. And then I shall think at that time, the department will be able to also update us on the progress in terms of the transferring of the land back to DPWI. Yeah, until think we could end it here. It's a matter that is ongoing. I should believe Honorable Paulson, Honorable Bryant, and the minister. You are around that area in terms of your constituencies, all of you. This is the matter you can then continue to check on and then update us as and when we progress. Then I want to thank all of you for coming, Deputy Minister for Police and the generals. We want to thank you so much for making time to be with us. We don't take this for granted. It's much appreciated, Minister and the DG. It's always a pleasure having you around. Thank you so much, colleagues. The meeting gets adjourned. I must remind all of you who are members of Parliament, there's a 3-line week today. We all need to be in the house at 2. Thank you so much, colleagues. Enjoy your day, Feda. The meeting is adjourned.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Minister.
Recording stopped.